Welcome to another episode of the Boys of EdTech. I've got Ryan and Jeff sitting in with me. Shout out to the Dodo, Jacob Cantor, and Matthew Milstein, the RevOps guru. They couldn't join us today, but we do have a very special guest, and I wish it was under different circumstances, but hey, we're going to talk what needs to be discussed today. So Amanda Lanicek, the Chief Technology Officer, Springtown ISD in the great state of Texas. And anytime there's a problem, we have to come to Texas to sort it out. So Amanda, welcome to the show. And we are looking forward to your expertise.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So we're going to dive right in and take us through when something like this Instructure data breach happens, and you're sitting there as a CTO and you get alerted to it. Can you just walk us through from your mindset when you get the alert, and then some of your steps? Anything obviously that you can tell us that you wouldn't put you in a bad spot in terms of your security presence in for your district, but just your steps and mindset of how you handle that situation.
Yeah. So obviously, immediately upon finding out was kind of like a moment. What do we do? Because this isn't something that happens every day. So we have our cabinet team. We have a group text. So I immediately text cabinet, say, this has happened. This is what I'm going to do. And I disconnected all our APIs, our SAML connection, because first and foremost, like I want to protect our student and staff data in case we weren't on the list, which thankfully we were not. But the list is only as good as the list, right? Like they're bad actors. What criminal is going to say, hey, this is what I have? And that goes into later. We'll talk about like how are criminals trustworthy? They're not, right? But so that was the first thing I did. And then we immediately notified staff and parents. I think it's very important to be as transparent as possible. And that's where Instructure fell tremendously is I found out about the incident from LinkedIn. I am an Instructure customer and we did not get any of the emails. So when I reached out to our CRM team, which was like a team of 6 people that are probably in a different country and never, they don't respond very quickly. I reached out to them and they were like, oh, sorry, we have the old CTO who retired 3 years ago as the contact. But here's the catch. We just now integrated with Canvas in July. So why would they have his contact information? I don't know. And I get all their other updates. So it was just these specific things that I wasn't getting. So there was a failure on so many levels, and they've taken responsibility for that, which I applaud that they've said, like, hey, we took responsibility. We were not communicating properly. But even when there was communication, they were just saying, check our status page. Well, that's not communicating.
No. And no, I think the biggest challenge is the lack of transparency into what actually happened. And I'm still asking the question, what was taken? Because
Yeah.
they will not admit what actually was taken. They keep on talking about usernames and passwords, but there's a lot more information on there than that. So, Amanda, I had a question, and it's like for the CTO level now, and I used to be in New York City as the head of science and tech for the city, um, way before they started doing things like this, which I'm kind of happy about.
I couldn't tell by your accent that you were from up there.
Water dead giveaway, I guess, right? Here's our gallon.
I stay away from water and coffee,
Yeah.
but I do know one thing: the Knicks is still playing, right? All right, I just
I should have blown my
couldn't not
background.
do
I
it.
should have blown my background. You got me. Hey, look. That's all you.
Amanda, quick question. So, like, when you have a lack of transparency and you don't know what's really done, how do you prepare your teachers now for informing the students and protecting themselves in the next phase, like for phishing or for trying to get information from them, things like that?
Yeah. So I think that districts that have external email communication with their students, we don't. That's something that I terminated 2 years ago was there was no reason for our kids to be getting emails externally unless they were from colleges, right? That's not an educational purpose for email. But there are a lot of districts that have it open. And I think if they do have it open, one, if they don't have phishing simulations for their kids, just like they do their staff, then they need to get that and get that in place and phishing reporting. But education's the biggest piece. So to teachers, to kids, we need to continuously be educating them about what phishing looks like and very simple things like don't click links you don't know, don't respond to emails that you don't know. And we laugh about it, but it's something that happens all the time. We had an incident a couple years ago where someone got different staff members' cell phone numbers and was texting them saying they were the superintendent and to go buy Apple gift cards. And teachers really thought like, oh, we need to do this because the superintendent's texting. When would the superintendent ever text you to go buy Apple gift cards? So they get people in those moments of like, oh God, I got to do this or I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. It was an incident out here recently with students doing the same thing, getting people's college coaches in the baseball world, and texting the coach saying, "I decommitted from your college." And it was like a number one, top 10 kid nationwide. And kids think it's
Wow.
funny, look at it. It's like people are so gullible at this point right now because
They
it's
are.
a but they don't have two-factor authentication.
Yes,
A lot of people don't think about, the urgency that someone comes at you with is a red flag. You need
absolutely.
to and a lot of them don't get that training. So as a CTO, I'm sure you have a lot of things in place that are happening now, but what would be your number one recommendation for a smaller district CTO that doesn't have resources like you have in Springtown to be able to do those things?
Definitely what you said is to turn on MFA and then in Google or Microsoft geofence your sign in. So we have it set up in Google where if a sign in is from a different country other than the United States, it automatically suspends the student or staff account. Um, we have certain, like for staff, we have some staff that travel back and forth to Mexico, being here in Texas, that's a hot destination vacation place. So there's some, that can sign in Mexico, but very like just tighten your security posture as much as you can with simple things like MFA and geofencing.
Very cool.
I had a Amanda. I'm gonna bring the mood up a little bit and encourage, and you could tell us later, but encourage everyone to follow you on LinkedIn, especially if you are an ed tech company, especially if you're an ed tech salesperson. You are the emerging goat of giving real talk feedback from the seat of a decision maker on what to do and what not to do. And so, for any of you ed tech sales team members or leaders or ed tech companies, you've got an amazing resource that is on LinkedIn all the time, giving you direct feedback on how your emails are hitting. That being said, in a situation like this, which I know is serious, and you said not maybe the ideal bedside manner. That's what I would say. I would say everything comes down to bedside manner. When something
Absolutely.
hits the fan, it's mostly about how you handle it, and it's about bedside manner. I think that goes for sales. I think that goes for customer success. This is an extreme version of that. But when something like this occurs, and maybe this is a one-time exception, hopefully, or something similar, what's your ideal response from a partner? Like, what do you want to tell the audience around effective communication with, besides even having you in the database, I guess, is step one. But like, what is your ideal response from a partner when something like this happens?
So, for instance, like from Instructure, what would I have wanted to know, or from other partners that support us?
Yeah, well,
Either.
give us
Okay.
the Instructure version on this one because this is extreme, and I think you
Yeah.
gave a little bit, but give us a more fulsome one. And
Yeah.
then I think also incredibly valuable. Like, what does it look like on the regular as well? So I think people will take away from that.
So definitely what I wish Instructure would have done is communicate immediately. So, it's back and forth with when they identified that there was an unauthorized user in their instance. So some reports say April 25th, some reports say April 29th. And if it was April 29th and they notified on May 1st, that's a 48-hour, that's acceptable. But I think at any point that they thought that there was something going on, they should have notified customers. We suspect this is happening. We don't know what it is, but we're investigating. Just let people know. And then what to do. Of course, they don't want everyone to immediately end all their API access and all that stuff. But it's not about them. It's about these kids that if their data was stolen would not know until they went to get a car loan or went to college or something like that and then find out they can't get a loan because someone's been using their information forever, right? And people will say, "Oh, but we don't share socials with Instructure." No, we don't, but we had API access to our student information system that does have that information. And that's a door, that's a tunnel straight back to. So people don't understand. It's a chain event, right? It's like playing dominoes. Once they get access to one thing, they can get access to another and another and another. And so I wish that Instructure would have communicated that, just took the hit. Like, okay, we know everyone's going to disconnect on this day. And some SISs did that. Like our student information system they terminated all APIs with Canvas, but it was late, right? It was on the 8th. when they did that, and a lot of SITSs did. But I think that Instructure should have terminated those API connections immediately until they knew what happened, and then had everyone re-authenticate. That would have been an easy fix, and it would have saved a lot of those districts on the list a headache.
Yeah. So you're saying, on the front end, take the pain. If you're the
Yeah.
organization, even if it seems scary, do it on the front end. Look out for the partner and the student information first and foremost. Take the it for the, unhook of the API and SIS. It's always better to be safe than sorry because
Right.
even an inch can give bad actors like that a mile.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe inch is another mile, right? Like you said.
From other partners, I have really appreciated the partners that I'm connected with and have a good relationship with reaching out and saying, "Hey, how can we help? Is there anything we can do? Here's what we would do if we were in your case," right? So, I think that has been great from people with connections. Now, the people that are trying to make a sell off of this, I don't know how many calls I've got and emails I've gotten from, "Are you an instructor? Do you want cybersecurity? Blah blah blah." Like that's crappy. Don't do it.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, could I just interject one thing? So, Amanda, just for the layperson that's not tech savvy, so just
Yeah.
the API, can you just explain how they go both ways? So a third party can actually give them access to your information. So when you plug something in, just letting them know how it works. Because there
Yeah,
are going to be people that listen that don't understand the whole architecture of what we're talking about, and they may get a little bit lost.
absolutely. So from your student information system, you're setting up an API access. So think it's like a door to whatever that third party is. So in this case, to Instructure. So that door is sending information from your SIS over to Instructure. And most of them are read only access. So Instructure can only read what, in my case, Skyward was sending. However, these threat actors are very intelligent and they can take that information and they can use it to gain access in other places. So it might be different integrations you have with Canvas. A lot of districts and a lot of universities have everything in Canvas, right? So your textbooks, all these vendors are integrated through Canvas through either APIs or LTI connections. So just think connections in general, like throw out all those acronyms. So all those connections are a point of entry for a bad actor. So if one's compromised, another can be compromised, and especially over time. So if you think this happened on the 25th or the 29th, and people really didn't start freaking out until the second breach on the 7th, then that's a long time that those bad actors had access to information that they could have done whatever they wanted with, right? So there's that. And then there's once they have the information, even if it's just simple, like right now, Instructure saying it's chat messages, student names, emails, and identifiers. Well, that's directory information. So you think like other than the chat messages, like, oh, it's directory information. It's not that big of a deal, but it is that big of a deal because shiny hunters particularly are, that's what they do is they do phishing and voice phishing. So they will call and say to parents, hi, I'm, blah, blah, blah. I'm calling for Amanda Lanicek, your daughter that goes to this campus, and they have all that information, right? And we need you to pay this much money for whatever it might be. It could be they could say it's a overdue textbook. They could say whatever it is. They might not say it's ransomware. We have your child's data, but they're going to use those things, and people are going to fall for it because they think that it's the school district because the information that they got. So it might not be an email, it might be a voice call, it might be a text message. So there's multiple avenues that they'll use to target people.
That's a great point because as many robocalls I get about all three of my kids in their lunch accounts, like if
Mhm.
they just threw it at me, it's like, "Hey,
Like
your
they
first
tell
grader has got $700." I would be like, "Man, that's probably about right. I guess he's feeding
he's
everybody."
eating up
But
that ice
uh,
cream. Yeah.
yeah, he got that ice cream, the cake, the macaroni,
Yeah.
like he's having a ball, like it's Golden Corral up there. But it is scary because you know some of the contractors that work with these large organizations, they get hacked as well. And
Yeah.
so all of my kids, our addresses were leaked as a part of a hack, and that becomes worrisome because you start thinking about all the worst case scenarios of it. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of like as a parent, but also within the school district of how to move through this and how to think about this, which kind of leads me to my question. So with the kind of explosion of artificial intelligence and the ability to maybe build some of your own solutions. I mean, either we're close to that or we're getting right up, we're rubbing right up against where some districts are going to start, I think, putting a toe in that water. Where do you go from here? Is this a deal breaker for you based on the response? It's like, hey, we've got to decide what we're going to do with this and maybe move off of, Canvas? Or is this, hey, let's rally the troops and build something internally? Like, how are you thinking about the move forward?
So I might not be the person to ask about AI because being here in Texas, Rick, you may know that data centers are going up everywhere, and
Everywhere.
we are cattle ranchers, and so that's happening on ranches around us and things like that. So I think that if there's a solution that already does it, then why are we using AI to build the same exact thing, to use another server and another data center to do the same exact thing that's you can already have, right? But I do think that on-prem will become something that you see more of versus cloud-based hosting, because districts are going to want to have that control. It seemed great at first to be like, oh, we're going to clean up our data closet and everything's going on cloud. And I only have this many servers that I'm in charge of on prem. Like the vendor takes care of all of this. But this is a great instance of, yeah, but do they really take care of it? And they do. I'm not discrediting vendors. Like they try, right? Instructure didn't intentionally get hacked. But I think that some districts will build their own. You have some real go-getters out there that have the staff and have the knowledge to do so. But I don't think we'll see that everywhere because a lot of districts are operating like us. We have 4,200 students, and I'm the CTO, and I have 5 repair technicians that repair Chromebooks and go out and do support tickets. So I think where there is the knowledge and time to do so, that might happen, but I don't think that'll be everywhere. I think we'll see back to on-prem versus cloud.
How do you weigh the decision to stay with Instructure versus this is a big enough black eye that we need to make some decisions? Is that a cabinet decision? Is that kind of the response? Like, kind of walk us through your train of thought there.
Yes, definitely a cabinet decision. I wouldn't make that decision on my own, but I have been very transparent with the cabinet about everything that I've received from, different like MSISAC and different cybersecurity awareness groups. And I say that until the FBI clears the incident, I don't care what any other organization says. If they're the ones that are in charge of clearing the incident, when they say it's good and safe, then that conversation comes of, do we continue Canvas? We're a Google district. Do we just move to Google Classroom for all? No, it's not an LMS, but really, what are our teachers using Canvas for? So I think there's a lot of discussion that goes around that. And then also we have to consider and be empathetic of our teachers that have spent so much time and effort building these courses in Canvas to lose everything. So I think like that's a big consideration too. And there's other options other than just doing an API to Canvas or whatever the platform is. We could be doing an SFTP and just sending the CSV files that we want. And so I think that that's another opportunity if districts, connect with vendors, is to not just open up a free for all API and send only the data that you want.
Hey, Rick, one of the superintendents I know from New York, he's a high school super in Manhattan. His name is Gary Beetleman. And he said, if I can't build it, I buy it. His first idea is to build the architecture himself. It be with his team. And then if that solution doesn't exist and his team doesn't have the capacity, then he buys it from the vendor. But he's actually in a build first mentality.
And I think like a lot of districts do that, like LA Unified. That's what they do. They have programmers there that they build. Like some of the guys that I know from there are just so intelligent. And I'm like, what do y'all do for your student information system? Oh, we built our own. What do y'all do for oh, we built our own. I'm like, oh, that must be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right about all that. I mean, I think like you're an informed leader, right? With the cabinet, eventually the superintendent making these types of like critical decisions. But to your point, there's probably a few different ways that you can at the core. That's what you said before. Like, what are we trying to solve for here? It's not necessarily do we want Canvas or do we want Power School or do we want to build one? It's how do we keep student and district data as safe as humanly possible to the
Yes.
extent that we can control. And from there, that's how you end up making decisions, right? Obviously, this is like very exceptional, but ultimately, to your point, like, hey, here's 2 ways we can do it and keep the same LMS and keep our same courses. Maybe there's a way they can give your data and your courses back to you, and you can upload them in a different LMS. But I think that that's the right way to think about it. Like, how are we going to protect this in the future so we can mitigate um, this not happening? I also agree with you around the data centers. These things seem to be going up. My wife said is taking drinking water away from people. So That's not good either, and it's taking cattle ranches away from people, but, there's a balance point in the middle somewhere, but ultimately, to your point, like, could there not be a data center for, each district to be able to pull off their same or at least some portion of the data, right? So, I think the way that you're thinking about it is probably a tempered approach from, build everything with AI to buy everything, right? There's gotta be something in the middle that works best, especially for districts like yours that actually are probably under-resourced in the grand scheme of things, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you guys know this. Like almost every district in Texas is dealing with deficit budgets.
Yes.
Deficit staffing. It's there's a couple of fast growth, and those are rare now. So everybody's trying to do less, do more with less, and it's definitely a challenge. And this is no exception of when you're trying to build your security posture and everything around keeping your data safe. It's a massive challenge. But we're not, even so, Houston ISD and Dallas, they huge districts, right? But they're strapped for the most part too of having to consolidate. So it's not as if this is something that they can do internally, like instantaneously. There's going to probably be some type of middle ground there.
Hey,
But
Rick, one note, I know
great.
you're gonna have one more section here, but, I just wanna point this out. Amanda has been sharing a lot of what Amanda, maybe you can, like, just give us a voiceover on this, but I've noticed not only are you sharing best practices for salespeople on EdTech, on your LinkedIn, but you've been sharing, like, a play-by-play on the whole Instructure incident. You've been giving advice to other school districts and CTOs on what you would advise them doing. And so I know Rick specifically asked you about Springtown and what you did and how you reacted to it, but I would love just to hear your voiceover around when you were learning things quickly, like what were you sharing out on LinkedIn and why does it matter to any district who's listening at home?
Yeah.
I thought that was really like you're like a great human being for being able to like
Well, thank
take
you.
emergency situation and like go on LinkedIn and try to help people. But I think that's what you are at your core, based on what I know. But what would you
Definitely.
listening right now that like
I
have
know yeah,
situation?
I know that there's a lot of districts that are our size and smaller and don't have the staff, and, there's a lot of districts that are huge and have the staff and they have different people working on things, but as I moved through the process within Instructure, I just shared everything I did. So, like I said, the first thing I did was disconnect the API and SAML. I made sure that all of our accounts, that everyone had MFA enabled and there wasn't, like, some rogue thing where I let someone not use MFA, right? And so everything that I did, I just would post on LinkedIn for others to know. Like, if you're an Instructure customer, do this now. Um, I just, I think that if it were the other way around, I would be going to resources and trying to find what to do. And from that, I even got information. There were people commenting. I'm like, oh, I need to do that. Like someone said, if you're connected to Google, make sure you go turn that API off as well. And I'm like, oh, that's great information. And so I think that just coming together as a community, regardless of, who we are or where we're at, is very helpful. And, we all kind of get through it together, especially when the company isn't communicating what to do.
I really appreciate that. But I just want to make sure I call that out because that like meant a lot to me to see how you showed up during the worst time and try to help people and
Yeah,
doing that.
absolutely.
Throw it over.
No, that's a great point. Like Jeff, I'm gonna let you jump in. It's just what people don't see about public ed is like, so during COVID, we're meeting as a state with all superintendents around the state weekly, working through that, and nobody sees that collaboration. It's a very small, tight knit community, even nationally. So that is happening behind the scenes. So your districts are not sitting still. They are reaching out to the experts and getting on these conference calls and trying to figure out what are the best things to do. It's just sometimes that doesn't get communicated, or you don't see kind of behind the scenes of like, man, we are. I promise you, we are taking it very seriously and trying to find solutions as quick as possible. Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, it's great. And Rick, you're gonna be sorry you passed over to me because I have a question now about what it was like when Power School got hit.
Oh, yeah.
Because Rick was there then.
Yeah, no. So look, that's a great question because that was an experience for me of I've got a lot of friends in Texas, right? And so you have to balance what legal says and what you can and can't say, but also trying to assure your all of the clients and customers and friends. Honestly, they're my friends, they're not clients, right? Like, hey, we are doing everything we can possible. I will give Power School a lot of credit because, and this goes to Hardeep, and shout out to him for doing this. Is like we did not wait. We took the steps. We provided as much as possible outreach, credit, credit monitoring, and I think that's what you have to kind of over communicate, in my opinion. Obviously, legal's going to tell you, where the lines are, where the guardrails are, but the lack of communication is what is always scary as being on the district side, because you just don't know what's going on, and all you're trying to answer questions that you don't have the answers
Right.
for. But it's hard being on the other side of it, knowing that my instinct is to call everybody I know and say, look, this is happening, it sucks, and here's what we're doing, here's what we know so far. But at the same time, being mindful of what legal says, and you got to follow policy. So it's not a fun spot to be in, to be honest with you. And that was my first experience understanding from the corporate side of what that looks like and all of their constraints, because they're trying to verify, do they really have it? Do they not have it? What do they actually have? Where did they get it? What can the FBI tell us about? If we pay the ransom, will they actually give it, or is it just going to be flooded to the dark web anyway? And so all of those questions are kind of up in the air for the leadership of any company to decide. So not fun for somebody that's in my position, where I couldn't say a lot, to be honest with you, and that was not a fun spot to be in.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one question I have to the group here is, um, Instructure was very careful about their lawyers, obviously, what they disseminated to people. Because they said that it would no longer be available on the dark web when shiny hunters wrote to them. So it was already out there. So they implied that the data was shared on the dark web with the students' information. And now the Senate Oversight Committee, actually, I don't know if you saw it, Amanda, this morning, announced an investigation into Instructure and their response time. Exactly what you're talking about. So now it's going to be where everybody's going to be put under a microscope
Yeah.
as to how we do business. Um, the question is, though, I mean, our students' information is more important than their physical fingerprint now. That,
Hmm.
when you're going forward now, how do we teach kids, and with everything else that parents and teachers have to do, how do we make sure that literacy piece, the technological literacy piece is at every district level? Everybody's AI literacy now, they're all throwing that at you, but this is a basic. How do you
What?
protect your information? And then what do
Wait,
you,
wait. I want to ask her, what do you teach your own kids?
Ugh. So my son, if y'all met him, he's wild and he thinks he's an expert in everything, and he's 5. He'll be 6 in 2 weeks. But he will talk, he'll talk tech just from listening to me. And like, he has a computer tech apps class, and so they learned about, like, they did a little cybersecurity book, and he was like, she told us not to share our password with anyone, but she has a card with our passwords on it, because they're in kindergarten, they can't type, right? And he's like, "So I tore the card up and I got to go to timeout." And I was like, "Oh my gosh," but like, that's, I teach my kid, you don't tell anyone your password. You don't tell anyone, like, you introduce yourself to someone, you're just Will. You don't tell them everything about you. Um, I used to before. So my son is a cancer survivor, but whenever I first had him, I was like, I'm never putting him on Facebook. I'm never putting him on anything. Well, that was the only way to really communicate through his journey. So his pictures got uploaded and everything, but I was like, totally, he's going to make his own digital footprint, not me, but you know, now he's out there for everybody to know. But I think that just with all kids, like, any visibility we can give, I know that there's certain cybersecurity companies that have written children's books about cybersecurity that can be read, during read alouds and classes. And I think any type of posters. And I personally love Cybernut as a company. They have so many resources for kids and to put up in hallways and things like that. And I mean, you can create something on Canva if you have 0 resources and you just want to put it in your elementary kids' hands of, don't share your passwords, don't click on links, don't, and I think it's just that continual thing. And like you said, Jeff, it's not a one and done. And oh, we train them, they're good to go. And I think that because of, state regulations and things like that, that's what happens is we train everybody at the beginning of the year and then it's no longer. So I think just posters and, putting it in newsletters and things like that to remind people, but not just our staff and students, but our parents,
Yes.
like, our parents, what training are they getting? They're watching TikTok or looking on Facebook and they see something cute and click on it to order it and it's a bad link. So I think, educating kids, parents, and staff is just a continual process.
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, one of the things I do a lot of times is I'll do the same workshop for students teachers and parents the same day. So I'll
Yeah.
do one of them, one for the kids during the day, after school for the teachers, and then that night for the parents, so they could have a conversation afterwards about what they're actually learning. And it's usually focused on AI or something I'm working on. But it's something like the communication is a huge issue in schools. Little kids, you can backpack stuff. But when you start getting up to the parent level, and high school kids don't want to carry anything.
Yeah.
So it becomes a major issue, and they all think they know, just because they're proficient in Snapchat or Instagram, they think that they know everything about technology.
Oh, for sure.
So it's getting scary. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, Rick, it was a
Mhm.
great question, but Amanda, quick question. So what about resources? Do you know anything that's available besides the books that are out there or anything like that? I mean, I'm thinking about maybe after this podcast, when we post a link for the podcast, we can actually have a couple of resources that we vet that might
Yeah.
be available for people. And I'd love to be able to work with you with the team to be able to do something like that. Say, hey, these are things we found that are great out there. Because I know Google has a cybersecurity
Yeah,
video
there's the
series,
Be
and it's
Internet
really good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them like that.
Yeah, I think that there's several things out there that you could definitely post as resources. I go to CISA a lot, to the CISA.gov page, and find things there. They're mostly adult materials, but yeah, there's tons of resources that could be thrown together.
Yeah, I think that's smart. It's like, and then Rick, you wrap it up here in 1 second, but it's like, when people think about safety, Amanda, they're just thinking about physical safety. But
Yeah,
imagine what you said, a quick text to a parent about some money on a card, on Slack, or a text from your superintendent to a person who's just going to do whatever they say. Your son or my son, who's 9, and your son and my son might be best friends because they're both equally wild and they have like very strong opinions, and they'll tell you about it. But it's like we say, "Hey, Theo, you don't get out personal information on Roblox. If somebody texts
yeah,
you or chats with you, you're Theo, and that's it, right? You're not, when they ask you your age or where you're from." And this has been going on for a long time, Amanda. It's not like it's day one, but it's certainly in 2026. It's like digital, like online safety might be reaching its peak importance, like Jeff said. And so I think, and you're really great at helping people and helping other districts. And so I think that you're right about the posters. There's got to be some thread of like digital safety that becomes equally as important as physical safety, because the two things, I mean, ultimately go hand in hand, right? Your physical safety can be at risk through not being safe online.
absolutely. I was reading about Shining Hunters. One of their attack vectors is to use cyberbullying. So think of them reaching out to our students. They have their names, they have the schools they go to, so they can find them on social media channels and bully them into, sextortion or whatever, and get kids to pay them things. And that happens, and it's real. And people don't realize that it really happens. They think it's just something that you see on TV, but it's real and it happens to young kids. And then you get into suicide and all those other things. So I think that, like you said, cybersecurity is just as important as physical security.
Yeah. I mean, Amanda, I'd love to have a conversation, and maybe it's a future episode, and talk about Jonathan Haidt's work and actually the data around emotional and how students have changed when social media became prevalent in their lives back from 2013, 15,
Right?
and all of the things that are happening now with this, that the inception of AI into their lives,
Yeah.
where it's going to change things dramatically. I would love to have that follow-up conversation, maybe grab somebody else. But it's in your district. Do you have a lot of AI use, or is it still basic stuff that you're doing with it?
Yeah. So it's still basic. Like I personally will use Claude for certain things, but very basic. We only allow Gemini because it's in our closed Google Workspace system. So that's another thing with AI when you're thinking of building things and teachers using AI, is like, where's that information going? And there's another, open door for people to have information. So we have it locked down to Gemini. I will say that there are teachers that use ChatGPT and Magic School and all those other things outside of their, account, which is scary. They don't understand that you put any type of student information in there. It's like, just give it away. What are you thinking? So that's a whole nother education piece. And our students do not. At this time, high school students, and we have one second grade classroom that's using Gemini, doing really cool stuff with it in second grade, but they've got a really great teacher leading them.
Can we end with some fun? So, because that
For those a
my
downer or
joy is
what?
that no. I'm just saying it's just been a heavy
Yeah.
conversation, and
So much
usually,
fun.
I usually like to make light of everything on LinkedIn, and we all follow you on LinkedIn, and some of your posts are very very humorous. So, but we do want to ask you, give us a great cold email that was like, all right, this is how you do it. And then also give us a stinker.
Okay, so I actually pulled one up that sucks that I'll read to y'all. But one thing I don't have the email, but one thing that made me like reach out to someone after they were emailing me, it was like they had emailed me and then like 2 weeks later I get an email and I see the guy's name come up and mark as read and move on, right? Well, then the third email was the title was, in case you were wondering, I didn't get eaten by alligators. And I was like, that's hilarious, right? I was like, what? So of course I opened it because I was like, what like who would say that? So if you follow me on LinkedIn, I always say like in some stuff, I'll say bring the alligator because that's what got my attention. Like I didn't care about anything else you was saying in the beginning because it was like, can we help with your blah, and then I was like, that's pretty funny. And when I talked to him and we ended up buying the product, but when I talked to him, I was like, what made you say, he's like, I mean, you were either going to respond or not. Like I had nothing to lose. And I was like, that's really funny. So if you're a salesperson and you don't follow Del Dupree, like he has some really great content that's just funny and I liked it. But an email that I received recently that I was like, I'm not gonna read this, but I'm gonna read it because it was y'all and it happened an hour ago. So the subject was continued conversations. Do you think I've had a conversation with this person before? No, sure haven't. And it's, hi Amanda, I'm reaching out on behalf of this company. Are you familiar? We're helping other school districts locate their sensitive data. Can you imagine why? Um, Automatically remediating, blah, blah, blah. Looking forward to connecting with you. Would you have 15 minutes to sync up? I've always wondered, like, who came up with that?
I think people are
I don't
scared. They're
know.
playing back foot,
Yeah,
they're
let's
like,
spend 7
what
minutes.
can I
Why
ask her
15?
for? And it's gonna not feel like I'm asking him for something, but it's like backfiring.
Yeah.
It's real time backfiring on them.
Yeah, but who came up with like, I'm like, just can we connect or do you have time or something? But that to me was like, we have never had a conversation. Um, no, I'm not familiar with your product. You've told me nothing about it. And they're obviously coming at us because the canvas breach.
So I'm taking away, be original, be engaging, and I mean, what's the other one? Any type of effort. Like if I really felt like as a superintendent, so one person like sent me the email and then brought a high top sneaker full of, I can't remember what the product was, but the hype, because I somehow they found out I love basketball, and so they brought me this sneaker, and I was like, okay, that's a lot of effort
Yeah.
to. So I was intrigued of, and didn't buy the product, but still have contact with that rep today, and I always remember that sneaker just sitting on there. It was like a size 16 because that's what I wear, so
Yeah.
like it was massive on, yeah. So um,
And I think just
that was
being
one of the things
original,
is
like I received
yeah.
like a box at the beginning of school with Advil and like some candy or something, and it's hilarious because it's like, what it's like at the beginning of school. But I think just being original.
We got one when I was in New York City. I got a one. You guys call them flip flop slipper, like
Yeah.
flip,
But
and
what do you call it?
it was in a box. I lived in Hawaii, so they're called slippers,
Oh,
slipper,
okay.
slippers. But Ryan is laughing.
I can't
And
understand it with the
if I
accent.
said flip
Slippers?
flop, if I said flip flop, I would get vilified by people there. So
Okay.
that's why I had to correct it. But it came in a little square box, and it said, "Take the next step with us." And the guy
Oh,
brought
that's
the other
funny.
one when he got there. So I had a pair of them afterwards when he came in to meet with us. So we
That's
had a
fun.
pair of the slip, and I was like, "That's funny." I mean,
That's
it's
original.
original. It
Yeah.
makes you look at it like, all right, I'll have a conversation.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
Yeah.
who's willing to put in the work, Amanda? I just feel like you and I were talking before we started hitting record, and I think it's just mindless like AI emails or it's like quantity over quality. And so in that email where he said, I've been eating like I haven't been eaten by alligators. Good. He has not been. Well, it's not
Yeah.
good. Better than have, obviously. Um,
That would be a interesting story though.
that would, but it might, but someone thought about it. Like there's
Right.
too much like surface level. We work with a district to do this one thing. And now
Hmm.
look, that there's a company here that doesn't exist anymore on this thing. And I'll tell you, thank you, when we shut down operations, the sharks came into the water. And I can't imagine who replied to emails to say, hey, this company that you work with shut down. We'll take the business, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what, like, no empathy for students not getting tutoring or services. Like, doesn't that backfire on you? Like, why would you try to make a sale to someone who's like vulnerable? Or you made a good point about you had a lot of bad storms in your area.
No.
There's cold outreach and there's SDRs calling your cell phone like 5 times a day.
Yeah. And I think, it takes 2 seconds to Google the district before you send an email. And like you said, a lot of it's automated. Well, you're really missing the mark by automating things because you don't know what's happening in someone's life at the moment that you're sending that automated email or you're doing that cold call. And like, we got hit by a tornado. It would have literally taken 2 seconds in Google to type Springtown, Texas, and you would have seen, you know, emergency, state of emergency or whatever, like it doesn't take that long. Or to even see, you think about districts, especially here in Texas, Rick would know this, like you look and see, is their football team in the state playoffs? They're gone, right? So I think that there's different things you look for and you can also use that material. Like I don't advise saying like, oh, I'm so sorry that you got hit by a tornado, but like, you can use that material so that people know you actually did the research on them.
Check to see if you're okay,
100%.
right? Hey, are you okay? We want anything.
Yeah,
What's the, yeah.
You don't need
Yeah.
to make this fit on
What's
the
the-
first try, right? You can just say like,
absolutely.
hey, we're human beings. We care
Yeah.
about you, whether we ever work together or not. I just want to check in to make sure you're okay.
And-
Is there anything you can do?
Yeah, I had a couple of those that were like, hey, you're on our client list. I saw this after I posted on LinkedIn. Like I saw on LinkedIn, you did like, is there anything our company can do for you? Can we donate to your students and stuff? And so like, that's awesome. That is really awesome. And those are the type of people I want to make connections with.
Relationships matter. I mean, people that have empathy and care. Like I said, and these guys know it. I put people into boxes, which I don't like to say, but if you care or you don't care, and if you get things done and don't get things done, that's a filter for me. If you don't care, I don't want, I'm honestly, it's like, sorry, thanks, good luck in life. It's
Yeah.
really tough.
Well, I mean, I think that's a great little bow on the end of the show there. We definitely have to have you back on so we can dive more into some of the fun stuff because that's what I love to do. But just thank you so much for not only for being here, but sharing your wisdom and lessons learned. And Lord knows that there's a lot of guidance that's needed for ed tech, for what's compelling for districts, but how to engage with districts. And I tell any founder, like K-12 sales is nonsensical. It's not B2B. And you have to quit thinking of it in those terms. You really have to build relationships. You have to know your districts and regionally and their community. And if you can't put the time in for that, then you're just going to have the roller coaster effect of, yeah, we make some sales here or there. But the companies that are going to put the effort, the time, and be original and value add to a district, they will stand the test of time.
They will.
Because everybody's going to take their lumps. But just thank you so much for joining us. And we will definitely ask you to come back and have a little bit more fun.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it.
Like, subscribe, you know the drill. And thank you for being here for the Boys of EdTech.
Thank y'all.